George R.R. Martin's butterfly effect rant, the Daenerys' eggs Easter egg, and the kiss that wasn't in the script. Here are the small screen secrets for House of the Dragon Season 2. The rebooted opening credits. Season 2 threw the Season 1 opening credits out and started again. Instead of the Blood and Gears family tree, we now get a medieval tapestry, embroidered with key moments from Targaryen history. If you freeze frame it, you can spot everything from Daenerys the Dreamer foreseeing the doom of Valyria, to Aegon's conquest, Harrenhal burning, the Great Council of 101 AC, and the eventual split between the Greens and the Blacks. And the clever part is that the tapestry keeps updating as the season unfolds. New atrocities get woven in. By the finale, dragons are looming over Dragonstone itself, which means the credits are showing history being made in real time. This wasn't a generic medieval reference either. Ryan Condal used the Bayeux tapestry as inspiration, the 230-foot embroidered cloth from the 11th century that depicts the Norman conquest of England ending with the Battle of Hastings. And yes, William the Conqueror was an obvious template for Aegon the Conqueror. The butterfly effect. One of the most dramatic moments from House of the Dragon Season 2 didn't happen on screen. It happened on George R.R. Martin's blog. In a now-deleted post, the creator of the franchise fired a rare broadside at the show, criticizing the decision to cut Prince Maelor, Aegon and Helena's youngest son, out of the blood and cheese sequence entirely. Martin argued that this wasn't a minor tweak, it was a butterfly effect, a small change with cascading consequences. In his view, removing Maelor undercuts both Helena's later tragic arc and the eventual public uprising in King's Landing that grows out of it. It is a rare moment of the original author publicly arguing with his own adaptation, and a reminder that the show and the books are now telling two slightly different versions of the same war. The Sir Crispin Backlash. The fan hatred for Sir Criston Cole became so overwhelming that, by the Season 2 premiere, it had spilled directly into the real world. Following the premiere, Fabien Frankel was forced to limit and at points turn off comments on his Instagram entirely after a barrage of insults and even threats arrived from fans who couldn't separate the actor from the character. The harassment quickly became a talking point for the rest of the cast. Matt Smith and Millie Alcock both publicly defended Frankel, pointing out the level of hate was actually a testament to how effectively he was playing the most divisive man in Westeros. Online, fans began calling him Sir Crispin as a kind of derogatory shorthand. Frankel eventually leaned into it himself, posting a cheeky Instagram story alongside the actors who play the Tittenser twins, a quiet way of showing he was staying positive in the middle of all of it. If you ever needed proof that your performance is convincing, the audience hates you for crimes that aren't real, is probably it. Daenerys' dragon eggs get an origin story. Season 2 drops one of the biggest franchise connections yet. The dragon eggs Rhaenyra sends away with Rhaena are the same eggs that will one day be hatched by Daenerys Targaryen. In Episode 3, Rhaenyra sends her younger sons toward the Vale for safety, with Rhaena escorting them, along with 4 dragon eggs as part of the escape plan. The in-world implication is that the eggs continue east from there, eventually reaching Pentos, where they will later fall into the hands of Illyrio Mopatis, the same man who gives 3 petrified dragon eggs to Daenerys in the Game of Thrones pilot. Director Geeta Vasant Patel made the connection explicit, saying, "Those are Daenerys' eggs." That makes it a huge piece of retroactive myth-making. In the middle of a civil war that is wiping dragons out, House of the Dragon offers a glimpse of the eggs that will eventually bring them back. The only wrinkle is that the showrunner himself left room for interpretation. After Patel's comment, co-creator Ryan Condal said he prefers to think of them as one possible future, rather than a locked piece of canon. The Conqueror's armor. When Aegon rides into battle, he's not just wearing normal armor, he is wearing a statement. His gear is designed to evoke the armor of Aegon the Conqueror himself, complete with that severe ancestral Targaryen look. Aegon is trying to wrap himself in the imagery of the dynasty's greatest king, as if putting on the costume might help him inherit the authority too. This tells us exactly how Aegon sees himself, or at least how desperately he wants to be seen. And the backstory behind the armor is even better. The full Conqueror-inspired suit took the costume team 24 weeks to build. There is no description of Aegon wearing Valyrian steel armor anywhere in Fire and Blood, so the whole thing was invented for the series, with Condal presenting it as an heirloom passed down from old Valyria. It also brings one of the most arrogant lines in the season. As servants strap him into the armor, Aegon declares, "I was given the Conqueror's name and his crown, so I shall wear his armor to war." By the next episode, that 24-week suit is melted into his skin. The rotting Ratcatchers. One of Season 2's grimmest background details is also one of its smartest. After Aegon has the Ratcatchers hanged following Blood and Cheese in Episode 2, their bodies are left on display outside the Red Keep, and the show does not forget about them. As the episodes go on, those corpses keep visibly decaying, from fresh bodies to withering remains to hanging skeletons. The Ratcatchers do not just mark Aegon's rage, they become a quiet reflection of his reign, brutal, ugly, and steadily rotting in public view. Sir Gawain Hightower Rebooted. Season 2 brings back a character most viewers probably didn't even realize they had seen before. Sir Gawain Hightower. Back in the Season 1 premiere, during Viserys' Heirs tournament, Gawain was the Hightower knight Daemon rather casually humiliated. At the time, Gawain was little more than a background noble with a famous surname, but in Season 2, he returns properly, now played by Freddie Fox and riding at the head of the Green's forces as Alicent's older brother. There's something satisfying about showrunners going back and upgrading him, and it adds a nice layer to the war. Alicent is no longer just sending banners and allies into danger. Her own family is now out there in the field. The full burn rule. One of the most terrifying behind-the-scenes details from House of the Dragon is also one most viewers would never even consider. Showrunner Ryan Condal revealed that when a stunt performer does a full-body burn, they cannot take even a tiny breath. If they inhale, the fire can follow the air into the lungs. Condal called the stunt team the real heroes of House of the Dragon, and for good reason. In the Season 2 battle scenes, the production had as many as 16 performers fully on fire at once. This is a reminder that for all the dragons and digital spectacle, the most shocking moments are still brutally practical. Buried explosives. For the Battle of Rook's Rest, the production wanted the ground battle to feel as real as possible. So instead of asking hundreds of extras to pretend dragonfire was hitting around them, the crew buried explosives in the earth and detonated them remotely during takes. That way, when fire and dirt erupted across the battlefield, the actors and stunt performers' terrified reactions were very real. An extra bit of fun trivia. The location was the peaceful Bourne Woods, the same iconic filming location where Ridley Scott famously unleashed hell for the opening of Gladiator. These woods in the county of Surrey were turned into a scorched earth war zone. Rhaenyra's crown is too big for her. The show deliberately left Viserys' crown unchanged when it passed to her, so it sits a little loose and awkward rather than looking perfectly fitted. It is a small costume choice that says a lot. Rhaenyra was named heir when she was still just a girl, and the oversized crown reflects this. She inherited a burden long before she was ready to carry it. The 5,400 frame oneer. One of Season 2's biggest technical achievements was the Dragonmont cave sequence with Vermithor in Episode 7. The scene is one of the most intense sequences of the season, featuring the sowing of the seeds, where Rhaenyra gathers Targaryen bastards to attempt to claim the riderless dragons. The shot was designed to feel like a single, continuous take, but behind the scenes it was actually a stitched-together composite built from more than 5,400 frames, which means the scene's smooth, relentless momentum was not the result of one impossible camera move, it was the result of a truly ridiculous amount of invisible digital stitching. Birds of Prey for Melees vs. Sunfire. The most spectacular moment in the battle at Rook's Rest, Melees and Sunfire locked together, falling out of the sky in a tangled spiral, was reverse-engineered from real wildlife encounters. Director Alan Taylor revealed that he and the VFX team studied documentary footage of Birds of Prey for the choreography. He noticed something specific. When raptors feel their territory has been invaded, they will flip upside down and engage talons mid-air, becoming locked together in a screaming death spiral all the way to the ground. Whichever bird releases first loses the fight. Taylor lifted that exact behavior for Melees and Sunfire, so the two dragons grappling, twisting, then tumbling earthwards together is taken directly from real eagle and hawk combat tactics, then scaled up to the size of buildings. Take something true about animals, then make it 50 feet long and on fire. A nightmare first shoot. The very first thing House of the Dragon filmed for Season 2 wasn't a battle, a council meeting, or a dragon attack. It was Daemon's nightmare. Matt Smith's first assignment after getting back into costume was filming the Red Keep dream sequence, where he hallucinates himself decapitating young Rhaenyra. This is honestly a very on-brand way to kick off a season built around guilt, paranoia, and one man's increasingly haunted mental state. Harrenhal is really a Welsh quarry. For all its ghost story energy, the outside of Harrenhal in Season 2 is actually an unassuming slate quarry in North Wales. The production used Dinerwig Quarry for Harrenhal's exterior, while the interior Godswood was built at Leavesden Studios. Apparently the goal wasn't just to make Harrenhal look huge, but instead to make it feel actively hostile. Production designer Jim Clay described the place as something designed to be psychologically torturous for Daemon, which tracks, because every time he walks through it, he looks like he has not slept properly in weeks. And in a neat bit of regional symmetry, Dragonstone's exterior was filmed at another Welsh quarry nearby, meaning that two of Westeros' most cursed locations are, in real life, basically giant holes in Wales. Hugh Hammer's scream wasn't in the script. One of Season 2's most unforgettable dragon moments was not actually written that way. When Hugh Hammer approaches Vermithor in Episode 7, the scene called for something quieter and more restrained. But on the day, actor Kieran Bayeux made a different choice. Instead of holding back, he let out that huge, staring, "Come on!" scream right at the dragon. Director Lonnie Perister said the moment gave him chills, and suddenly the scene clicked. Hugh was not trying to soothe Vermithor. He was trying to prove himself to it. So instead of a timid man begging for acceptance, it became a tiny human squaring up to one of the largest dragons alive. The Rhaenyra-Mysaria kiss was an on-set idea. One of Season 2's most discussed moments was not in the script at all. Episode 6 originally built the scene between Rhaenyra and Mysaria to a much more ambiguous kind of intimacy, essentially a charged pause, then interruption. But Emma Darcy, feeling the scene demanded something clearer, discussed it with Sonoya Mizuno, and then brought the idea to Ryan Condal before filming. The result was the kiss. What makes it especially controversial is how this diverges from Fire and Blood. As Darcy has noted, the source text is written like a history, and histories have a habit of leaving women's emotional lives out of the record. The Bosu Ball Dragon Ride. One of Season 2's stranger filmmaking tricks involved a piece of gym equipment. To make dragon riding feel less rigid and more physical, the camera team experimented with putting operators on a Bosu balance trainer, a half-sphere used for exercise, so the camera would rock and sway unpredictably, like someone trying to stay mounted on a living creature in flight. At the same time, the production also used an upgraded mechanical buck riding rig, combining moving mechanical elements with volume screens to create more natural rider movement. So, for every epic dragon flight you see in Season 2, you have some poor seasick camera operator to thank. 2 weeks on the Bronco. For all the digital wizardry and volume LED screens around her, Rhaenys' last ride came down to one actor and a mechanical rig. Eve Best filmed the entire battle at Rook's rest sequence on the Buck for 2 solid weeks. Her own description: "I spent every day for about 2 weeks on the Bronco," she told Business Insider, "and we were doing all kinds of wild moves. At one point, it had to look like we were doing 360-degree turns, and they were having to simulate that somehow. A fortnight of being thrown around in a harness while wind machines blast at you and an LED ceiling pretends to be the sky. All for what is, on screen, a few minutes of actual flight. The peace and acceptance you read on her face when Melees finally stops, the surrender of a rider who knows it is over, may have been impacted by the actress physically wrestling with Rhaenys' demise for 14 days straight. The assassins stand in hand. The blood and cheese sequence in the season opener was one of the darkest scenes the show has ever done, which meant the team had to be extremely careful with its youngest actors. One of the smartest tricks was also one of the simplest. When the assassin covers little Jaehaerys' mouth, the hand you see on screen does not belong to the actor playing the killer. It belongs to the actual father of young Jude Rock, who plays Jaehaerys. This meant that, even in the middle of unimaginable horror, Jude was still being handled by someone safe and familiar. The rest of the sequence was also carefully structured so that the worst violence happened off-camera, or was staged using dolls instead of the children themselves. Which is a good reminder that some of television's most disturbing moments are only possible thanks to some very responsible decisions behind the scenes. The Stark theme came back. While the war theme is the most conspicuous across the series, the very first scene of Season 2 quietly hits you with one of the most emotionally loaded pieces of music in the entire franchise. When Jace arrives in the North and meets Cregan Stark at the Wall, the series reintroduces the original House Stark theme from Game of Thrones. It is a small choice, but for longtime viewers those notes are far more than just a theme now. They carry more than a decade of memory, loss, and accumulated Westeros trauma. So before Season 2 has even properly started, the score is already reminding you, this story is part of something much larger and much older. The Lost Ninth Episode. If Season 2 felt like it ended a bit early, you weren't imagining it. The season was originally ordered as 10 episodes, with the back half building toward a major climax, the Battle of the Gullet, a gigantic naval clash that reshapes the war in Fire and Blood. Alan Taylor was attached to direct that 9th episode, then HBO and Warner Bros. Discovery cut the order down to 8. Taylor's own description: "It was a funny kerfuffle at the beginning because we were going to originally do 10 episodes and we cut it down to 8. I was going to do episode 9, so I had to jump around and find a new chair to sit in. The chair he ended up in was episode 4, The Red Dragon and the Gold, now considered the best episode of the season. This obviously explains why Season 2 felt like it was building towards something the season never got to deliver. The Battle of the Gullet is coming up soon in Season 3. Alan Taylor's Westeros track record. Before House of the Dragon, Taylor directed 7 episodes of the original Game of Thrones, including Baelor, the episode that beheads Ned Stark in Season 1, and Beyond the Wall, the Season 7 set piece where the Night King kills Viserion. Now in Season 2 of House of the Dragon, he is the director behind Rhaenys and Meleys's death at Rook's Rest, which means Taylor has now killed Ned Stark, a beloved dragon, and the queen who never was. His own assessment: my career has weirdly turned into this thing where I frequently murder people's favorite characters. So if Alan Taylor's name turns up in the directing credits for any future Westeros project, you should probably brace yourself. The Six-Fingered Hand. Some of the secrets in House of the Dragon aren't hidden in dialogue, they're hidden in the credits. Open up the Season 1 opening sequence, find the cog representing Aegon and Helena's eldest son Jaehaerys, and look closely at his sigil. 2 overlapping hands, and one of them has 6 fingers. If you've read Fire and Blood or watched Season 2, you know exactly why. Jaehaerys is the heir assassinated by the killers known as Blood and Cheese in one of the darkest moments in Targaryen history. The episode is harrowing, and his death is grim. The Six-Fingered Hand is a gruesome foreshadowing of that death, hidden in the title sequence from Episode 1 of Season 1, more than a year before the show actually depicts what it's referencing. It's visible in the Season 1 credits, every single episode. The kind of long-fuse foreshadowing that rewards obsessive viewers and quietly stuns the rest of us when we finally catch up. David Bowie and the Punk Dragon. In contrast to the majestic elder dragons of Westeros, Moondancer was designed to have a reckless, aggressive, and almost punk presence. By incorporating the erratic, snappy movements of bats and Komodo dragons, the production ensured she felt temperamentally distinct from ancient behemoths like Vhagar. Early designs even boasted a top speed of 150 miles per hour, though they eventually dialed that back a bit. The end result was a dragon that feels less like an ancient weapon and more like an over-caffeinated chaos machine. Meanwhile, the actual look of Moondancer came from an even stranger reference. Ryan Condal confirmed the brief he gave the design team for Moondancer was, and this is a direct quote, simply David Bowie. What came back was, in Condal's own words, this tiger-striped green punk rocker with a mohawk. Moondancer's slim build, the green and yellow stripe pattern, that crest of spines along her neck like a glam rock hairdo, every weird design choice on her suddenly clicks into place. Vhagar feels like an ancient war monument, Vermithor like a piece of geology, and Moondancer feels like Ziggy Stardust with wings. And that's all for House of the Dragon Season 2 secrets. Make sure to check out the channel for more House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones deep dives.